Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant. And today, after sharing with you our New York City shoot a couple of weeks ago, I want to go into a little more detail on Leica's CL, the camera I've now chosen for my own personal street photography. I can hear it already. Right, Hugh. The Leica CL, the not even full frame, up to 3 times the price of other similar cameras Leica CL? You mean that one? A camera with no ports, not even flash sync? That one? No articulating screen, no IBIS, no phase detect autofocus, no pixel shifting, no log profile, 10-bit 422 video, no 24p, tiny battery. Stop. Just stop. Because the CL is not about those things. It's about the experience of photography, the feeling of being at one with your gear, the shortest distance, as I like to say, between intent and execution, if only one opens one's mind long enough to understand it, which I had to do. And, oh yeah, by the way, the image quality. In short, the joy of shooting. And the fact that, for me, anyway, in my very biased, non-objective way, your mileage may vary, that's fine. It serves as an inspirational bridge, I've said this before, to 100 years of heritage and history and my own 50 plus years photographic journey. A journey which began the moment I held a slide up to the light for the very first time, peering at the miraculous image, or so I thought at the time, taken by my mother on a 1938 Leica IIIa. This one. And yeah, the one that opened the show, the one I realized only recently, I've taken again and again over the course of my life. Now, it's not like you can't find joy in other cameras. It's not like other cameras aren't capable of stellar image quality or don't have history either. Or can't be had for much less. It's not that I don't really dig other cameras too, because I do. Just not as much as this one. It's a personal thing. And frankly, the CL is, once again, for me, the perfect street camera. Small, light, fast, unobtrusive, easy to frame and focus, even when using manual glass. And yet it simultaneously gives off the aura of, or hey, it's probably more the way I feel when it's in my hand. So important in street work when you actually engage someone. This is a serious photographer. This is a serious guy. Yeah, it could just be the white hair and glasses, though, and all about what I imbue the camera with. So, okay, fair enough. And while this video is brought to you by Leica, with my sincere thanks, guys, this was just lovely. As always, the views expressed herein are absolutely my own. What else can I tell you? But I think you know this. Oh, for those of you who wonder, yes, I have to give all of the gear back about now. So let's get into it. Because when you first look at it, it's far from obvious how the CL, a camera with no labels or dedicated buttons for the exposure, triangle of aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, the holy grail for a shooter like me, the one thing missing from almost every new camera, would be appealing to me. But oh baby, is it? First up, the feel in hand and the view through the EVF. The CL is tiny compared to most of today's high-quality interchangeable lens mirrorless cameras. It weighs just about 400 grams without battery or card, but retains the solid, I'll call it, of a piece feeling of its bigger siblings, the M and the SL, both of which I've spent a good chunk of time with. It feels timeless. Forever. It feels like it was designed by people who cherish tools, understand the power of objects, people for whom industrial design is a calling, not a career. There is simply no other rangefinder style camera on the market other than Leica's own M series that feels this good to me. As should be the case, the CL is a clear homage to the very first production Leica, not the M, by the way, but the original camera of 1925, of which my mother's IIIa is a close variant. The IIIa itself, in fact, tips the scale at an almost identical 406 grams. Virtually identically radiused sides and width, dials remarkably similar to the 2017 CL, at least in terms of placement. I think the industrial design is brilliant, the most successful homage I've ever seen. Don't like the fact that there's no grip? I understand, even if it would violate the purity of the CL's industrial design homage to the original, and in any case, I personally don't mind. More importantly, Leica seems to understand this too, which is why they now offer one. Yeah, it's an extra $150, what can I tell you? But it is also available as part of the new Street Kit, which swaps out the original 18mm f2.8 for the more compelling, once again, to me anyway, 23mm f2 Summicron TL, giving you a full-frame field of view equivalent of a classic 35. And on top of that, you get an extra battery, which I highly recommend you get in any event. Still, if you set aside the design cues, I think it's more accurate to consider the CL as a 1/3 the price, 2/3 the weight, and 95% the image quality of an M, with an EVF instead of the M's integrated optical rangefinder, with the option of autofocus, both compelling changes given my evolving eyesight and my acclimatization over the past 4 years to seeing precise exposure framing and depth of field in real time directly through an electronic viewfinder. This was the single biggest surprise for me when returning to the CL after spotting a barely used, too good a buy to pass up TL2 on eBay, which I complemented with a brand new VisorFlex Type 20, and the number one reason why I'm trading the TL2 in for a CL. The CL's very modestly spec'd, at least for 2019, but stunning. I mean, just works. 2.4 million EVF. The CL makes it dramatically easier for me to focus manual glass, far and away better than any other rangefinder style mirrorless ILC out there. This is critically important to me because I find joy in slowing down to take the shot, engaging with the people I'm shooting, and traveling smaller, lighter, and less obtrusively than is possible without dropping down to something so small that it forces compromises I don't want to make. What the CL also has that the TL2 does not is the ability to set lens corrections for non-Leica glass, and that gives me options I want. Next, the controls and menu system. Here's the thing. Once you understand them and work with them, contrary to my expectation, the CL actually encourages you to embrace muscle memory, working with just 3 controls under your right index finger and thumb to give you access to the exposure triangle. And focus assists for when you go manual. Like just about every other camera out there these days, you can also spend hours customizing the camera in spite of the small number of controls. Leica has been rather clever about this, but here are the 2 keys to happiness when it comes to customization. 1, do as little of it as possible. 2, remove as many options as possible so that you never even see them. So, an on-off collar around the shutter release, 2 control wheels just behind that, with buttons in the center of each, a small but legible LCD panel between them for basic information like shutter speed, aperture, and mode, a dioptric adjustment just to the right of the EVF, 3 buttons on the rear to the left of the rear panel, permanently labeled play, function, and menu. To the right of the rear panel, a 4-way controller with button in the center. That's it. This makes me happy. Let's go straight to the novel bits, the control wheels. Once you turn on the camera, you use the left control wheel to set mode. These are the usual suspects: aperture priority, shutter speed priority, program, full auto, manual, and actually in this case, movie mode too. You do this by pressing the button in its center and then rotating the control wheel to the one mode you want. The lower left corner of the rear screen, along with the little LCD panel on the top plate, show you the options as you go through them. Another press of the left center button, or simply waiting a second or two when the color of your selection on the rear screen changes and the top panel exits mode selection to reveal aperture, f-stop, and of course mode. And your choice is confirmed. That's kind of it for the left control wheel, though if you press and hold its center button, it locks both wheels. I guess that's so you don't accidentally change settings while the camera is inside a bag or brushes up against your clothing, though neither was ever an issue for me. Once the mode is set, the two control wheels share responsibility for aperture, shutter speed, and exposure compensation across those modes. But they're also used to set and change secondary functions like focus magnification and ISO. As I just said, like any other camera out there, you can spend hours customizing these functions, but Leica has managed to make it less painful than most. Next, for either function button, the one on the back or the one inside the right control wheel, a short press brings up the one function you last set it to. So if you've set the right wheel button to ISO, which is how I usually do it, in full manual mode, you've now got full control of the exposure triangle, all located within a square inch of each other, all available to your right thumb and index finger. You don't even need your left hand. If you prefer to use the function button on the back, same thing, a short press, and there it is. In either case, you change the actual ISO values, in the instance I've just described, by using the right control wheel, or if you like, the four-way controller on the back, just the left and right arrows. The good news is that as soon as you rotate either dial, just in case you forget, and I do, icons for both dials pop up on the rear panel with a letter or two to indicate their function. I appreciate that and look forward to the day that consistently I don't need it. If instead of a short press, you give it a long press, one Mississippi will do it, you are presented with a customizable list of up to your 8 most used functions, at which point you just scroll to the new one you want to be default, press, and you're good to go. Want to swap ISO for focus magnification, but know that you'll be doing that often? Boom, done. You get to choose, of course, which 8 functions to show up on that long press by going into the main menu, selecting Customize Controls, and then going at it. You can page through the main menu by pressing the menu button on the lower left, or you can scroll all the way through each page by using the four-way controller. You can shortcut this whole process by selecting up to 15 items in a favorites menu, up to 2 pages, that will always appear first when you press the menu button. I find this stuff exhausting, but I figured you'd want to know. But again, my advice is keep it simple. I typically don't worry about keeping more than ISO, focus mode, focus magnification, white balance, exposure compensation, and film style handy, because I love having monochrome at the ready. Then the EVF is black and white too, which is actually a wonderful compositional aid. If you're used to all analog controls, I'd allocate an hour to familiarize yourself with this. But know that with the latest firmware update, you also have the option of swapping wheel assignments if, for example, as I recommend, you always want shutter speed assigned to the right dial, like I do, especially when you're using manual glass. So yeah, on first blush, even second, those control wheels seemed to me a touch too clever, but with a small investment of time, they suddenly looked just clever. And they ended up being very fast. I was surprised, however, when I switched to movie mode, and both dials switched to exposure compensation. What? I mean, I was expecting shutter speed on one, aperture on the other, and then I'm thinking, okay, it's the mode. Where's the mode within movie? Well, that very quickly led me to wonder, is movie mode only available in full auto on the CL? Why, yes. Yes, it is. 30 frames per second only in 4K, 30 or 60 frames per second in HD, that is full HD, 30 frames per second in 720p, but who cares? While the CL is capable of stunning footage, actually, I was gobsmacked when I slapped on the 11 to 23, this guy. For a quick shot I needed for our last CL video inside the International Center of Photography. This is a stills camera, full stop, which is fine by me. I prefer this. My advice on video on the CL is also simple. 1, never use the 720p. 2, in fact, don't use the CL for video at all. 3, if you do feel the need to shoot video at that moment, use your smartphone instead. My iPhone will go longer. It won't heat up. It gives you slow motion. You can edit the footage right there on the phone. You get the idea. I want to be clear. I'm not knocking the CL's video capabilities because, again, in the short time I used it, they were stunning. So much as saying the reason why I love the camera is because it is a photographer's tool, not a hybrid shooter's tool. And why I love it for my personal work. Okay, moving on. The playback button is what you'd expect, although I should mention that the tactile sensation of all of these controls is wonderful. You do have the option to star your images. You do have the ability to zoom in or zoom out. In fact, the gesture and touch control is excellent across the board. The center button of the 4-way controller turns on and off the information display in the EVF and the rear screen. The arrows surrounding it perform the usual navigation duties within the menus, and as I said earlier, offer a second way to navigate parameter setting like ISO or white balance. It's simple. It's nice, uncomplicated, and wonderful to the touch. That's really all I want to cover on the controls in the menu system, actually. As I said, once you understand them, they are very clever and fast, and they are a joy to use. Do I wish the CL at least had the permanently labeled dedicated shutter speed dial of the M or the Q? Well, yeah, I do. Do I wish that the CL actually had the control layout of the Q, with a real aperture ring and the manual autofocus ergos of the Q's integrated 28 1.7? Yeah, but let's not get piggy. Third, the app. I've talked about this several times before. The photo app is just about the cleanest I've seen for connection, selection, and post to the social media app of your choice. It's actually pretty decent for remote control too. I actually think of it, I experience it as a work of art in and of itself. After you set it up for the first time in its very Apple-like way, it's always easy to reconnect, easy to edit, and easy to share. This is a strategy of allowing each tool, dedicated camera, and the extraordinarily powerful web-centric computer in your hand to do what it does best. My iPhone X has just about 3 times the screen real estate of the CL, and it's like looking at slides on a light box in the olden days of, well, even into the 1990s and early aughts. Fourth, the glass. Wow. This was actually a delightful surprise because I was perfectly ready to believe that in an era when everyone has access to computer-aided design tools and computer-aided manufacturing, the gap between the very best and the close enough to best has all but vanished. Not so. What I found without pixel peeping, that's not what I do, and triple checking my very clear biases, is that I fell in love with Leica glass all over again. The first thing to recognize is that, like no other camera in the Leica lineup, indeed, like no other camera, period, the CL takes to Leica M manual focus glass in terms of performance, handling, and aesthetics, while preserving the option of using native autofocus lenses of stellar image quality and build. Now, no, the autofocusing 35mm f1.4 Summilux TL is not built the same way, nor has quite the same satisfying, petite, yet hewn from a rock kind of feel as the Summilux M. But it is such an incredible, utterly silent tool that it is my favorite lens in the entire lineup. Full frame field of view and depth of field equivalent of a 50mm f2 Summicron. It was so good that even though I also had this lovely Summilux M3514 during my time with the CL, it ended up being completely redundant, leading me to throw on the even smaller Summarit M28F2 aspherical. That's the mount, and having a blast with it. The 11-23, which I showed you before, and the 55-135 zooms shocked me, these two. Because I'm not a zoom kind of guy, and these are not particularly fast, nor even constant aperture. What they are is optically stunning and tiny compared to other APS-C lenses from other manufacturers, let alone full-frame glass. I have to say, Leica product planners really sharpened their pencils on these two. They recognized that optical performance and size ruled the day, especially as these would typically be used during the day, not by pro sports shooters at night. The 55-135 and the 11-23 are perfect urban landscape lenses. Because the CL shares the same L mount with the full-frame SL, this means you can also throw on something like the Summicron SL75, which is over there, F2, for just drop-dead gorgeous portraiture at the approximate full-frame equivalent of a 105mm f2.8. So, okay, no, you don't get quite the same background blur you would with a full-frame SL. But again, the trade-off is an autofocusing lens of impeccable image and build quality, so compact, on a body even more compact, that it is significantly smaller and lighter as a package than today's full-frame halo or reference 50mm primes with a more flattering perspective. And with the L-mount alliance announced at Photokina, you can anticipate an even wider and more economical array of choices coming soon. Fifth, in use. The CL is small, unobtrusive, and quick, as I've said I don't know how many times now, precisely what the original 1925 Leica was all about, and the reason why it changed the industry forever. As I mentioned earlier, smaller and even less obtrusive than the M. And around $5,000 cheaper before we start talking about glass. In fact, with the Street Kit, it's far less than half the price of an M with a Summicron M35mm. Sixth, results. What can I say? You saw the results last time, but just in case you didn't, here's just a bit of it. I love New York. I was born here. I keep coming back here. It heightens my senses, stretches my emotions, deepens my thoughts, sparks my curiosity. New York reminds me to live life fully, with intent. I'm a writer, filmmaker, and YouTuber, but photography, people, are my lifelong passions. Whenever I travel, work, or pleasure, I have a camera with me. And I want that camera light, small, fast, flexible, tack sharp, with gorgeous color, even though I shoot mostly black and white. I want it intuitive, offering me the shortest distance between intent and execution from capture to post. The Leica CL does this for me right down to the tightly integrated Photos app. More than that, it inspires me. It's a small voice in the back of my head, a century's worth of history, technology, and legendary imagery whispering, see things clearly, do good work, make your life count. Makes me happy. The camera inspired me. I moved beyond my comfort zone in some instances and was rewarded for it. Still, it was fascinating to speak with Leica's Micah Harberts at Photokina. Was it back in September? Right. She's the product manager for the CL and TL2, and learned that the performance objective absolutely was give up nothing to the M in terms of image quality. Now, Leica has to work within the laws of physics like everyone else. But at any real-world combination of image size, viewing distance, and sharpening in post, I'd say mission accomplished. My eyes see that the color science is the same. It's the classic Leica look, especially with the Leica glass. And objective measures of dynamic range indicate that the APS-C and full-frame sensors used in these latest cameras from Leica are very, very close. Seventh, heritage. You know what? Check out my 4-part series on the SL, and it's all there for you. You'll get it. There is, to my mind, no other camera company on the planet which shares the continuous operation since the dawn of the modern era and has engaged more completely with the world, let me put it that way, with more integrity and concern for its employees than Leica. This means ever more to me these days. Eighth, use cases. As I've said many times, I love the CL for my street work, but it's equally at home as a travel camera especially, or a camera to record a lifetime or two of family. None of which makes it perfect. I wish the CL took a tiltable EVF like the Type 20. It doesn't. But this doesn't bother me right now because I'm spoiled by the CL's superior viewing experience. I will wait. I will wish for Leica to upgrade its VisiFlex. I hope I won't miss the built-in 32 gigabytes memory found in the TL2 for those times when I forget to slip in an SD card, which I actually did at my own wedding. The TL2's internal memory saved the day. I wish both cameras had the ability to transmit aperture data from manual focus lenses through the Leica M2L adapter, along with focusing distance. The adapter does transmit what lens it is, but I like knowing these details. Hard data like that help me see patterns and help me decide if, for example, I really want to go sub f2, or how often I actually bump up against f2.8, and might suggest that I really do shoot often enough at, say, 4 feet, that the APS-C equivalent of a 40 millimeter would be Jake. I wish the CL had a bigger battery, or more efficient circuitry, though the CL's battery already has more capacity than that of the TL2, 1200 milliamp hours versus just under 1000 for the TL2. I wish the CL would give me a real T-shutter option integrated with timer, so I could do the kind of 4-minute long exposures I'm increasingly enjoying. Now, I did not get to check out the CL's flash capabilities, though without a sync port, you're limited to on-camera flash or wireless. As far as I know, the CL works with the Leica SF60 and the SF-C1 wireless controller in full TTL mode, manual only with something like a Pocket Wizard, but in either case, I'm not at all certain it can do high-speed sync, which would be lovely if it could. But in any event, no Mark Cohen or Bruce Gilden style street photography for me, though that's fine too. That's just not my thing. So, okay, let's wrap this up. In the end, the CL represents a very specific set of choices and trade-offs. If you're a Leicaphile and can afford it, it's a phenomenal entry point into the world of real Leicas, designed and built in Germany to last several lifetimes at a, relatively speaking, bargain price. If you've never tried Leica, but have the wherewithal, if you are a student of the art and history of photography, if you're an M man or woman, but have reached that point in your life where you want either an EVF experience and or autofocus while retaining the option of lens interchangeability, if you're a Q man or woman, but want lens interchangeability without giving up the EVF or autofocus, if you're an SL man or woman who wants to go dramatically smaller, lighter, and less expensive, and are not worried about video, or you simply want the best EVF experience using Leica glass in a compact package, you owe it to yourself to check it out. For me, personally, the bottom line is this. I loved the SL. It woke me up to Leica again. It spoke to me, but it was ultimately too big too expensive, and silly as it may seem, I just didn't enjoy the proportions when mated to M glass. It felt wrong. I enjoyed the Q, loved that 28 1.7 autofocusing manual lens. I wish all Leica lenses were built like that, but I'm not a single focal length kind of guy. The M10D was the right size, obviously made for M lenses. It inspired me in the span of a single afternoon to take some of my favorite street shots of all time, and I came this close to pulling the trigger, ready to drop even bigger bucks on it than the SL. But in the end, I realized that my need for a higher performing EVF than the current Type 20 meant that it would be best to wait. You know, I bought a used TL2, mated to a new Type 20 tilting EVF, and was delighted with the package. Except when I wasn't, because again, more often than I'd like, I struggled with manual focus. Still, the form factor was fabulous, is fabulous, and it inspired me once again to do some of my best street work ever. I would have struggled with it going forward until I revisited the CL. It costs more than a used TL2, even a new one, but I've decided it's the street kit for me, along with the Summilux TL3514. I just need to take care of a few other things first. And with that, a huge shout out to Leica for dropping the CL and almost a dozen lenses on me to play with to my heart's content. Though sadly, it is now finally time to send them all back. And an equally huge thank you for making this video possible, guys. And that is that.